Hey, my name's James Nicholson. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about how to raise your tenants' rent fairly and how to make sure that you get good tenants and loyal, long-standing tenants off the back of that. So make sure if you're a landlord, you watch this video. If you're a tenant, maybe you watch this video as well, just to see what's going on in the market, because a lot of people don't really understand what's happening. While you're here, if you haven't done before, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification. We're on the way to 7,000 subscribers. You can see somewhere around this video, I think it's going to be around there, and say how close we are, about 100 and so away. Maybe your little subscription could help us. And if you haven't done before, or you haven't done on this video, make sure you like the video, because that helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And we're trying to get 100,000 views this month. We're very close, but there's only a few days left, so please help us. So, rental increases. Where is this coming from? Let's talk about that first, because it's a really tough market at the moment. And while not many people have sympathy for landlords, I see you guys in the comments, I totally understand. It's not as straightforward as you might think. Now, the problem that we've got is that during the pandemic, we printed tons of money, right? The government used something called quantitative easing. We printed it for your furlough, for your bounce back loans. We printed it to keep the NHS running. We spent a fortune, more than we've ever spent in history. Now, the problem with that is eventually we have to pay that back. And that's meant that products have become more expensive. So inflation got really high for a long period of time. It was above 10%. I think it was 11% for a brief period of time. And it hasn't gone. Right, so we've really got high inflation still. We're at 6 point something, 6.9 is it? Can't remember, but it's 6 point something percent, which is crazy. The rest of Europe has got it down. Spain's got it down below 2%. America's got it down around 3%, and we're still at 6.9%, which is insane. That means prices are going up. Now, to counter that, the Bank of England increased interest rates. That's one of the only mechanism that they've really got to drop inflation. What that means is mortgage payments get significantly more expensive. Now, why landlords get hit more harder than a residential mortgage is we only pay interest on a mortgage. So let's just say a landlord had a £100,000 mortgage and their interest rate was 2%, which you could get. That means they would pay £2,000 per year as their mortgage payment, right? That's not too bad. Now, the problem is interest rates are above 6%. So a 6% interest rate means that the landlord now pays £6,000 per year. It's tripled, right? So their mortgage payments have tripled. Now, I know you haven't got a violin playing for landlords, and they should have known, and all of this sort of stuff that people will comment. I get that. Do comment what you think below as well. But look, what will happen is that effectively these costs get passed on to renters. The landlord has two options. They have to increase the rent, or the mortgage provider will pull their mortgage. The mortgage provider wants the landlord or forces the landlord to be profitable. If they're not, the landlord will have to put extra money into the property. Remember, they've lost £4,000 a year here. They have to put extra money into the property to increase the yield, basically. That's how that works. So landlords are in a tricky spot there. Next is something called Section 24. So landlords used to get taxed. If they had £1,000 rent, they would be taxed on the profit from that rent. So they'd take up the mortgage payment, say it was 500 quid, and then they'd be taxed on the 500 quid profit that they've made, right? Which is normal. That's what happens in business. They now get taxed on this gross rent at the same time as interest rates are going through the roof. So that's another double whammy for landlords there. Next is EPCs. So this has not got a deadline now, but potentially landlords have got to spend tens of thousands of pounds improving their properties to make them more energy efficient. Most don't have it. Amateur landlords don't have that money. They've lost £4,000 there. They're losing loads of money because of the tax threshold. And so what's happening is 30% of landlords have left the market. That means there is a lack of rental stock at the moment. Now, a lot of wishful thinkers just say, well, great, get rid of the landlords. Then you're going to get the basically big corporations buying up properties. What will happen then is rents will go even higher. And maintenance with these big companies isn't particularly great. In fact, the councils are some of the worst accommodation providers in the UK. It's in the paper every single day, a council provider that has an absolutely horrible reputation on fixing their tenants' properties. So all of this means there is now a lack of housing supply. Interest rates are high, landlords aren't getting any support, so rents are going through the roof at crazy, crazy prices. In Hastings, I have a property that the rent was $850. That was the market rate in 2019. Now the market rate is 1,300. It's 1,300 and there's still no stock, right? Meaning it's going to go even higher. I think it will be closer to 1,600, 1,700 next year. More and more and more and more people are leaving. Now, how do you deal with this as a landlord? Well, here's the thing. You've got to look at it on a property by property basis. I think that's what you've really got to do and take the emotion out of it. So, I look at it on a property by property basis. I have some properties where my mortgage is very small, right? Where the mortgage is really insignificant and the tenant is good. And so on those, I'm putting the rent up 25 quid, 50 quid, and really letting the tenant know that that is a below market value, like increase in rent. I make sure the agent really clarifies that for my tenant. I had a tenant this week that handed their notice in because they were going to go and live with family for a bit, and then called back and said, we've just looked at how much rents are. You're charging us significantly less. We don't want to leave. We like the property. We were only leaving to go and live with family to save up a deposit for a house. But we just have that real concern that we might not get back into the rental market. And so when you let people know that, they don't know what's going on in the outside world. They just know this is their rent. This is what's going on. They don't focus on this kind of stuff. So what I'm saying is, if you do increase the rent, let people know. Be fair with people though. If you have a low mortgage, then just give them a smaller increase if you can. Now, I have other properties where the tenants have got significantly below market value rent. The remortgage is coming up on that property. It was on a very low rate, and I know for a fact that at the rent that I charge them, if I got a remortgage, I might have to pay as much as 25 grand down on the debt in order to get a deal on today's market. So in that instance, I have to be fair with the tenant and just let them know ahead of time. In fact, I'm letting tenants in those situations know way ahead of time, months before I even do it, that this is what I'm going to need to do, right? So rather than just give them notice, and you only need to give them 1 month's notice in line with when their rental is, right? So if their rental goes out middle of the month and you've just got past that, you're going to have to give them like 6 weeks notice, but it's not much notice. So what I want to do is try and give them months ahead of time, give them their options, right? Let them know this is what it's going to have to be, or the mortgage isn't going to pass. And so then they've got options to explore if they can find something better. And that's really important, that you build that rapport, tell people what's going on in the market, get them to read the news, because at the end of the day, they don't care about your mortgage payment, but they do care if they're really brought to their attention and they see that it's going to impact their rent. And so that's the fairest way, is that if you need to do a big hike, which I do on a couple, I don't on others, but I take it on a case-by-case basis. You must do it on a case-by-case basis, because what will happen otherwise, if you have a low rent, then Section 21, no fault eviction, goes in the future. You might not be able to increase that rent, and then you might not be able to get rid of that tenant, and then you might struggle with future remortgages. That's why you need to do it on a property-by-property basis. It's not a nice situation to be in for the landlord. It's not a nice situation to be in for the tenant. But unfortunately, this is the consequences of the rising interest rates that we've got in today's market. On the flip side, when the interest rates go down, then you don't need to maybe increase their rent for a while afterwards. Be fair with people. If you do an annual increase of 1% or 2%, but your interest rate drops in 2 years, let them have some time off. We'll always do that for good tenants and look after people. And we've got good tenants and we've got a couple of bad ones as well sometimes. Not bad, but not as good as the good ones. So this is important, that you just have dialect with people, be fair with them, let them know what's going on, explain to them what news sources they can go and find out all of this stuff. And then, as I said, you'll see some people that might want to leave, but never know. When they see what the real market's like, you can do them below market value. You might be able to keep them as a tenant and they'll be happy that you've done them a deal. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on it. It's a real tough topic. I know the comments will be a bit fiery on this one. Do comment below though. Keep it nice. Do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Let's watch one more video together and get 100,000 views. So go and check out this one right here.